There's a date coming that most people will sleep through. October 15th. And I'm not talking about some astrological alignment or numerology trick. I'm talking about something far more specific. A moment when the architecture of reality reaches a tipping point, and what was difficult before becomes suddenly possible. What was invisible becomes obvious. What was closed opens wide. You might think I'm talking about an event, something that happens to you from the outside. But that's not how this works. October 15th isn't coming to change you. You're moving toward a version of reality where October 15th already changed everything. And the distance between where you are now and where that distance is shrinking faster than you think. Let me explain what's actually happening. Reality isn't a fixed stage where time marches forward in a straight line. Reality is more like a vast landscape of possibilities, and consciousness moves through it like water finding paths downhill. Most of the time, you move through the same channels, the same patterns, the same loops. You call this your life, but every once in a while, the landscape itself shifts. New channels open, old patterns collapse, and suddenly the water flows somewhere completely different. October 15th is one of those shifts. Not because the date itself is magic, but because enough momentum has built up, enough awareness has accumulated, enough people have started questioning the old ways of understanding how things work, that reality itself is reorganizing around a new center of gravity. You know how sometimes you can feel something coming? Not logically, not because someone told you, but because there's a texture to the air that changes before a storm. That's where we are right now, right before the storm. And if you know what's happening, if you understand the mechanism, you can position yourself to ride the wave instead of getting crushed by it. Here's what most people don't understand about how consciousness works. Your awareness isn't contained inside your head, looking out at an external world. Your awareness is the field in which everything appears. And that field has been operating under certain rules, certain limitations, certain frequencies for a very long time. But those rules are changing. The limitations are dissolving. The frequency is shifting. And October 15th, that's when the shift becomes irreversible. That's when enough consciousness has moved into the new pattern that the old pattern can't pull it back anymore. It's like when you're pushing something heavy up a hill and you finally reach the top, and suddenly you're not pushing anymore. Suddenly gravity is working with you instead of against you. That's the moment we're approaching. Think about water again. When you heat water, it stays liquid for a long time. The temperature rises gradually. Nothing seems to change. But then you hit a specific point, 100 degrees Celsius. And suddenly everything changes. The water doesn't gradually become steam. It transforms instantly, completely. The phase shift happens all at once. Consciousness works the same way. You can have gradual growth, gradual awareness, gradual understanding for years, decades even. But then you hit a threshold, and everything you learned, everything you prepared, everything you worked on, it all crystallizes in a single moment. You don't slowly become awake. You wake up. And when you wake up, you wonder how you ever believed you were asleep. That threshold for collective consciousness. That's October 15th. And if you're hearing this, if these words are reaching you right now, it's not an accident. You're part of the wave that's about to crest. You're part of the water that's about to boil. You're standing on the edge of the shift, and something in you knows it. But here's where it gets interesting. The shift isn't going to announce itself. There won't be fireworks. There won't be a voice from the sky telling you that everything changed. The shift is internal. It's in how you perceive. It's in what becomes possible for you. It's in the synchronicities that start appearing. It's in the opportunities that suddenly line up. It's in the clarity that replaces confusion. And the people who understand what's happening, they're already preparing. They're already aligning themselves. They're already shifting their awareness to match the new frequency. Because they understand something crucial. You don't wait for reality to change and then adapt. You change first, and reality follows. By the way, our shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. So, what exactly is shifting? What's different about the reality on the other side of October 15th? Let me break it down in a way that makes sense. Right now, most people are operating in a consciousness that's built on separation. The idea that you're an individual, isolated, separate from everything else, trying to survive in a competitive world where resources are scarce and success means beating other people. That consciousness created everything you see around you. The economic structures, the social hierarchies, the education that taught you to memorize instead of understand, the medicine that treats symptoms instead of causes, the spirituality that puts enlightenment somewhere in the future after you've done enough work, all of it built on the foundation of separation. But separation is a phase. It's not the truth. It's a stage of development, like how a child has to develop a sense of self before they can transcend it. Humanity had to experience separation fully before we could move beyond it. And we're there now. We've gone as far as separation can take us. We've built everything it can build. We've learned everything it can teach. And now we're ready for what comes next. What comes next is recognition, not belief, not faith, not hope. Recognition, direct seeing that there is no separation, that consciousness is one thing appearing as many things, that you are not a separate wave in the ocean. You are the ocean appearing as a wave. And when that recognition becomes not just a concept, but a lived experience, everything changes. October 15th is when enough people reach that recognition that the collective field tips. When the dominant vibration shifts from separation to unity. Not because everyone suddenly becomes enlightened, but because enough people do that, the frequency of the whole field changes. And when the field changes, everyone in the field feels it. Everyone in the field has access to new possibilities. Think about how a flock of birds moves. One bird shifts direction, and instantly the whole flock shifts. There's no leader, there's no command, there's just instantaneous coherence. The information moves through the field faster than any individual bird could communicate it. That's how consciousness works. When enough awareness shifts, everyone shifts. Even people who don't know what's happening. Even people who would deny it's happening. The field carries them. And right now, we're at that moment. That exact moment when enough birds have turned that the whole flock is about to wheel in a new direction. You can feel it if you're paying attention. The old structures are crumbling. The old authorities are losing credibility. The old explanations aren't satisfying anymore. People are waking up to the manipulation, waking up to the lies, waking up to the possibility that everything they were taught might be backwards. This is the preparation. This is the softening. This is reality getting ready to reorganize itself around a completely different principle. And October 15th is when that reorganization locks in, when the new pattern becomes stable, when the new possibilities become accessible to anyone who's ready to step into them. But here's what you need to understand. Being ready doesn't mean being perfect. Being ready doesn't mean having figured everything out. Being ready just means being willing. Willing to let go of the old stories. Willing to see things differently. Willing to trust that there's an intelligence orchestrating all of this that's far beyond what your individual mind could comprehend. Because that's what's really happening here. You're not figuring this out. You're remembering it. You're not learning something new. You're recognizing something you already knew but forgot. And October 15th, that's when the forgetting ends. That's when the remembering becomes undeniable. So what do you do with this information? How do you prepare for a shift in consciousness? Not by adding more, not by doing more, not by becoming more. By releasing, by simplifying, by coming back to what's essential. Because the shift isn't about gaining something you don't have. It's about dropping the obstacles to what you already are. Start by noticing your resistance. Notice where you're holding on. Notice where you're defending. Notice where you're pretending. Because all of that's the old consciousness. That's separation trying to maintain itself. And it can't. It's already dissolving. The only question is whether you dissolve with it gracefully or whether you fight it every step of the way. Notice the stories you tell yourself about who you are. Notice how much energy you spend maintaining an identity. Notice how exhausting it is to constantly prove yourself, defend yourself, explain yourself. All of that effort is about to become unnecessary. Because the consciousness that's emerging doesn't need you to be anyone. It just needs you to be present. Here's a practice that will prepare you more than anything else. Every day between now and October 15th, spend time in stillness. Not meditation with a technique. Not trying to achieve some state. Just sitting with what is. Letting yourself be exactly as you are without trying to fix it or improve it or understand it. That simple act, that's you training yourself to operate in the new frequency. Because the new frequency isn't about striving. It's not about becoming. It's about allowing. Allowing reality to show you what it wants to show you. Allowing opportunities to come to you instead of chasing them. Allowing yourself to be moved by something bigger than your plans and strategies and goals. And when October 15th comes, when you wake up on that morning, you're not going to feel like a different person. You're going to feel like yourself, but you'll notice something subtle. You'll notice that things flow more easily. You'll notice that the right people show up at the right time. You'll notice that solutions appear without you forcing them. You'll notice that you're not fighting anymore. Not fighting reality. Not fighting yourself. Not fighting the way things are. That's the shift. That's what changes. Not some dramatic transformation where you suddenly see auras or talk to angels. Just a quiet recognition that you're not separate from what's happening. You're part of it. You're being moved by it. And when you stop resisting that movement, when you stop trying to control it, everything becomes effortless. The people who get this, who really understand what's happening right now, they're not rushing around trying to prepare. They're not stockpiling anything. They're not building bunkers. They're doing the opposite. They're letting go. They're releasing. They're simplifying their lives. They're clearing out everything that doesn't serve the new frequency, because they understand that you can't carry the old into the new. You have to leave it behind. Think about a butterfly. When it's inside the chrysalis, it doesn't try to improve itself as a caterpillar. It doesn't try to become a better caterpillar. It dissolves completely. It becomes liquid. And out of that liquid, something entirely new forms. That's where humanity is right now, in the chrysalis, dissolving. And October 15th is when the wings start to form. You can't force this. You can't make it happen, but you can align with it. You can stop resisting it. You can let yourself dissolve instead of clinging to what you think you are. And when you do that, when you really let go, you'll discover that what you thought was death was actually birth. What you thought was losing yourself was actually finding yourself. What you thought was the end was actually the beginning. So, between now and October 15th, watch yourself. Watch your mind. Watch how it tries to make this into something it can control. Watch how it tries to turn this into a task, or a goal, or an achievement. And every time you catch it doing that, just smile. Because that's the old consciousness. That's the caterpillar thinking it needs to become a better caterpillar. And you're not a caterpillar anymore. You're in the process of becoming something else entirely. The signs are everywhere if you know how to read them. Pay attention to what's collapsing around you. Pay attention to what's falling away. Pay attention to the structures that are crumbling, the beliefs that are dissolving, the certainties that are evaporating. That's not destruction. That's preparation. That's reality clearing space for what's coming. And what's coming is a way of living that most people have forgotten is even possible. A way of living where you're not driven by fear or lack or the need to prove anything. A way of living where you're moved by curiosity and love and the simple joy of being alive. A way of living where work doesn't feel like work because you're only doing what wants to be done through you. Where relationships don't require effort because you're connecting from wholeness instead of need. Where money flows because you're aligned with the natural abundance of reality instead of operating from scarcity. This isn't fantasy. This isn't wishful thinking. This is what becomes available when consciousness shifts from separation to unity. When you stop seeing yourself as separate from the source of everything, you realize you have access to everything, not because you're taking it from somewhere else, but because you are it. You are the source appearing as this particular expression. And October 15th, that's when this stops being a mystical concept and starts being a practical reality. That's when the people who've been preparing, who've been practicing, who've been letting go, they suddenly find themselves in a completely different game, playing by completely different rules, with access to completely different resources. But here's the critical part. This isn't about being special. This isn't about being chosen. This is available to everyone. Every single person on this planet has the same potential for this shift. The only difference is awareness. Some people know it's happening. Some people are preparing for it. Some people are actively aligning with it. And those people, they're going to experience October 15th very differently than the people who are still clinging to the old patterns. You get to choose which group you're in. You get to choose whether you ride this wave or get tumbled by it. You get to choose whether you step into the new consciousness or spend your energy trying to maintain the old one. And the choice isn't made once. It's made every moment, every time you notice yourself contracting, defending, resisting. You have a choice. Let go or hold on, open or close, trust or control. The universe is about to make it very clear which choice serves you. Because after October 15th, the old patterns aren't going to work anymore. The manipulation tactics that used to work won't land. The fear-based motivations that used to drive people will lose their power. The hierarchies built on domination will start to crumble, not because someone's taking them down, but because the consciousness that supported them is evaporating. And in that space, in that void where the old structures used to be, something new is emerging. Communities built on genuine connection instead of transaction. Economies built on contribution instead of extraction. Relationships built on recognition instead of need. Education built on awakening instead of conditioning. Healing built on wholeness instead of fixing. All of this is coming. All of this is already here for those who can see it. And October 15th is when it becomes undeniable. When even the skeptics have to admit something shifted. When even the people who weren't paying attention start to notice that reality doesn't quite work the way it used to. So use these days. Use every moment between now and then. Not to cram in more doing. Not to achieve some spiritual milestone. Just to practice being present, practice letting go, practice trusting, practice allowing. Because those simple practices are what prepare you for what's coming. Those simple practices are what tune you to the new frequency. And when October 15th arrives, when you wake up that morning, don't expect trumpets, don't expect visions. Just notice. Notice how you feel. Notice what becomes clear. Notice what suddenly makes sense that didn't before. Notice the opportunities that appear. Notice the people who show up. Notice the synchronicities that start cascading. And then, most importantly, act on them. Because the new consciousness isn't just about seeing differently. It's about living differently. It's about making different choices. It's about trusting the flow instead of forcing outcomes. It's about following what lights you up instead of what you think you should do. This is your invitation, not to join some exclusive club, not to become special, but to remember what you already are, to step into what's already yours, to claim the consciousness that's already available. October 15th is just the date when that becomes easier than it's ever been. When the momentum tips in your favor. When the universe itself conspires to wake you up. You can ignore this. You can dismiss it. You can go back to sleep, and life will continue. But it will continue in the old pattern, the old struggle, the old separation. Or you can pay attention. You can prepare. You can align yourself. And when October 15th comes, you can step through the door that's opening. You can let yourself be carried by the wave. You can allow the transformation that's trying to happen through you. The choice is yours. It always has been. But the moment is now. And the moment is accelerating. Every day between now and October 15th, the new frequency gets stronger. Every day, it gets easier to align with it. Every day, more people wake up to what's happening. And every person who wakes up makes it easier for the next person. This is the cascade. This is the tipping point. This is the moment that mystics have been pointing to for thousands of years. Not some distant future. Not after you die. right here, right now, in your lifetime, in your body, in your experience. The shift from separation to unity, from fear to love, from struggling to flowing, from becoming to being. And it all accelerates on October 15th. Not because that date has power, but because that's when enough momentum has built that the shift becomes irreversible. That's when the new consciousness locks in as the dominant pattern. That's when the old world starts to fade and the new world starts to solidify. So prepare yourself, not by adding anything, by releasing everything, by letting yourself be empty enough that the new can fill you, by letting yourself be open enough that the new can move through you, by letting yourself be present enough that you can recognize what's happening when it happens. If this video changed something in you, write in the comments. I'm ready for October 15th. Write it as your promise to yourself. Write it as your declaration to the universe. Write it as your agreement to step through the door that's opening. Nobody